I wanted to ask you, so I asked you, I don't know, we talked about how Dave has been so good to you, but to hip hop also. He's such a fan. You know, when his show was the biggest fucking show on television, he always had, or often had, hip hop artists on, and continues to, you know, he loves the music, and it's a big part of his life. But I asked you how you guys met.
Right.
Can you tell that story? Because it's kind of fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I worked at a bookstore called Inkiru Books, which I went to buy, and there was a customer who came in the bookstore, who's just phenomenal woman, that I started sort of dating and hanging out with, and we had a relationship that I thought was going somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me that she used to date Dave Chappelle, the comedian, and I'm like, Nutty Professor was out, which I was actually watching last night. And I'm like, the guy that Eddie Murphy doing the piano, that's the guy? And she's like, yeah, that guy. She's like, he's brilliant. I'm like, really? And she's like, you know, she was older than me. And she, God bless her, she told me straight up, she was like, I'm going back to my ex-boyfriend, which was Dave.
Oh, and you're like,
what the fuck? Am I chopped liver?
Yeah.
That's what they used to say back in the day. What am I, chopped liver?
Yeah.
I actually saw him in and around her building.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was like she was cutting it really close.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, that's the dude that Eddie Murphy doing the piano.
Yeah.
That was my only point of reference at that point.
So did you say like, what's up? Like, did you say?
Yeah,
hey,
like, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not a dick.
Right. But were you guys cordial, like, or was it kind of standoffish?
No, I wasn't standoffish at all.
No.
Like this woman owed me nothing. This man owed me nothing, and I was very juvenile. I was too juvenile to keep this woman.
Yeah.
But I was old enough to understand that I wasn't owed anything.
Yeah.
So a couple years later, my manager at the time, Corey Smith, he was also managing De La Soul. De La Soul had a show at a college in Ohio, which Dave was now living in Ohio with his family. Well, no, he wasn't. He was living there, but he hadn't started his family yet. Mm-hmm. And I go to the De La Soul show. I was hanging out with High Tech. We drove up to the show, and Dave Chappelle's there. And I tell him this story, and he's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty funny." And that was it. And by that time, though, Half Baked was out.
Okay.
So I'm like, Half Baked is like a documentary about my life.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, now I'm just like, yo, that's Dave Chappelle. Like, he's a genius.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I can't stop telling him how much I love Half Baked. Yeah. And how much those experiences in that movie, and it seems really goofy now, but that's really how I was living.
Sure. And at this time, is this before any of your albums come out? When you're
Black Star had to have been out.
Oh, so it was out.
Black Star was out.
Okay.
Reflection Eternal was not out.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm like touring and hanging out with De La Soul at this point. And then a couple of years after that, Dave and his soon-to-be wife Elaine were walking down the street in the Village. I have to assume they were on some sort of date. And I ran into them on 8th Street. I invited Dave to the Reflection Eternal album sessions. He also was surprised that I was working with a guy from Ohio. Mm-hmm. And he came to every session, almost every session.
That's crazy. He
would come to the session at Electric Lady. And at this time, D'Angelo,
where's
Electric Lady's on 8th Street, across the street from 8th Street and 6th Ave.
Okay.
Studio that Jimi Hendrix built in Greenwich Village. It's a magical studio. At this time, D'Angelo was with Questlove and James Poyser and Pino Palladino in the basement recording Voodoo.
Uh-huh.
Common and Jay Dilla were on the second floor doing B. Jesus. And myself and High Tech were on the top floor doing Reflection Eternal.
God damn, man.
This is all at the same time.
That's wild.
You know, and Erica records her albums there, and the Roots recorded several albums there. But all this was happening at the same time. So Dave would just come, and this is how he met everybody. And this is what he tells everybody. He's like, I met all these people because I came to Kweli's sessions. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you listen to that Reflection Eternal album, Lennox Lewis is on it.
Yep.
Because a friend of mine was dating him and brought him through.
Really?
Yeah. And anybody who walked into our studio, we made them get on the mic and say, Talib Kweli, High Tech, Reflection Eternal. Uh-huh. So like 88 Keys had some girls who came through and they couldn't pronounce my name.
So that's a genuine thing?
Yeah.
That's genuine.
Yeah.
It's such a cute Like, you know what I mean? It's such a genuinely sweet thing. Talib Kweli,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
say it.
She couldn't say it, no matter what we told her.
Yeah.
Gil Scott-Heron, me and Yassine were working on a song for the Hurricane soundtrack, the movie that Denzel was in about Reuben Hurricane Carter. And we were going to feature Gil Scott-Heron on it. So he comes to the studio to do the song. And as soon as he comes to the studio, I have him say, this is Gil Scott-Heron, you're on a train of thought, Talib Kweli, High Tech.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to record the song with Black Star. And he falls asleep for like 5 hours.
Really?
And then he wakes up and he leaves and he never does the song. But at least I got that drop.
That's a great drop.
But those drops are real. Dave Chappelle heard those drops and he's like, I want to do drops as people. So he did a drop as Rick James. But his Rick James, he hadn't hung out with Charlie Murphy enough to hear the Rick James stories.
Sure.
So his Rick James was really Bootsy Collins.
Okay.
So he's doing a Bootsy Collins voice, but saying, what's up everybody, this is Rick James. And he did Bill Clinton, but I didn't use it because I felt like that wouldn't age well.
It's a good thought.
And he did Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, this is Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
And to this day, people ask me, how did I get Nelson Mandela on my album?